Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Movie Pit Podcast. I am your host, Christian Renteria, and yes, it has been a minute. I apologize. I started work again, and I told you, if you follow the socials, I told you that the release schedules can be a little wonky. It turned out to be a lot more wonkier than I originally had hoped for. But I'm going to try to update you guys more in general. I don't know where I was going with that. It's been a long day so far when I'm recording this. But I want to obviously keep you guys updated on the release schedule and obviously update more podcasts or update the feeds more with more podcast episodes. I have a couple things saved up that I just want to, save just in case. I know I can't upload anything or record anything that week, which has been for the last couple weeks. But I always had thought I was going to do it, and then I didn't do it. And then I was like, oh, none of these are finished. I can't release anything. I'm a bad podcast host, and I apologize for that. But I'm going to make it up here this month, obviously, to try to make it up this month, because I will be doing a lot more episodes, recording a lot more episodes, and I'll be having a little bit more time, hopefully editing sooner rather than later. That's the hope. But I will try to do the best that I can. No promises, but try to do the best I can. So that said, let's get to this episode of the podcast. As you can see from the title, read from the title, it is the August Rewind. I try to do kind of what I did last month, which was like triple features or double features and talk about 2 or 3 movies at the same time. That didn't end up happening. There were some big movies that came out in August. August, very, very filled up with movies. Obviously, August is usually kind of the dump month, as it's been titled around, where studios just drop stuff because they know people are going to either watch it or they're not going to watch it, and then the audience will find its audience in some way. Obviously, also the end of August has a lot, but also doesn't have a lot, and that's mainly, of course, because kids are going back to school and no one's really going to the movies. But enough of that. Let's get to the movies that came out. In August. I saw a lot, and I'm not going to talk about everything. I'm going to talk about most of the stuff I saw, but I'm not going to get into detail on everything. There's a few movies rather, that I'm going to get really into. Alien Romulus being one of them, Trap being another one. But these first handful of movies, rather, I'm going to be talking a little bit about just kind of a little bit, maybe kind of an honorable mention kind of feel, but also kind of getting into it just a little bit as well. So the first movie we're going to talk about is Afraid. And none of these, by the way, are in release order. These are just movies that I know I don't have too much to talk about. Those are the ones we're going to talk about first. Unfortunately, for this movie that I just mentioned, Afraid, I didn't really like. So some of these movies will be movies that I didn't really like at all either, because August was filled with movies that I did not enjoy. And I will let you know the movies that I did not enjoy. Afraid is one of them. Blumhouse, not doing so well this year. Obviously, Night Swim, Imaginary, earlier this year. 2 movies that I did not enjoy whatsoever. And now we have this, Afraid. I mentioned on the socials, Twitter and Threads, that Afraid asks the important question, the question that has led to 2 different strikes in Hollywood, and one that is quietly going on right now, which is the Voice Actors Guild strike. Should we be afraid of AI? Should we not use AI? Are we too reliant on AI? Should we be too reliant on AI? And what happens when we can no longer, of course, control it? And Afraid starts to ask those questions and gets into the kind of the real meaty part of those answers. And unfortunately, it falls apart, and it just falls into the typical kind of lackluster movie that it ends up becoming. Nothing against the cast, John Cho, Catherine Waterstone, they're doing obviously the best that they can do with the material they are given, but it ends up falling kind of flat in the end. And I mentioned that the movie felt like an extended episode of The Twilight Zone, and because it introduces a red herring, which is true, it does introduce it. But then I mentioned something that I admittedly, after kind of like a day or two, I felt kind of bad about, because I said that it was insulting. And it's not as insulting as like Imaginary, that does things, and that does one particular thing just kind of out of the blue, and it's like, why did you do that? Here, it's not necessarily insulting as that, but the red herring that pops up in the movie, it pops up and it just kind of doesn't make complete sense considering what the movie ends up doing at the beginning. I don't want to spoil it in case you actually are interested in watching this, because for the most part, the beginning of the movie, pretty good, and then it kind of keeps going, and that's kind of where everything kind of falls apart. So, intriguing concept, interesting concept, fails on the execution a lot. And again, it feels like an extended episode. I almost mentioned Black Mirror, but I think just because of modern times, we think of Black Mirror, and obviously Black Mirror, Twilight Zone, kind of an updated version of that. Obviously more modern version of a storytelling, but this feels very much like an extended episode of, like, a Twilight Zone, Black Mirror kind of thing. Next one I'm going to talk about is Jackpot. This is a movie with, again, an intriguing concept, but this one actually kind of works, at least for me. Directed by Paul Feig, which I totally forgot about and didn't realize that it was directed by him. Bridesmaids, Heats, the all-female Ghostbusters movie, Spy, which is another one which I truly enjoy. And it's set in the near future in LA, where the lottery is completely different. The winner of the lottery has to stay alive until sundown to keep their money, or they can end up dead, and the person that kills them ends up collecting the jackpot, which is now legal. Yes, you would think that is murder, but no. In the near future, a lot of things have changed, and the lottery is now either you win it and you stay alive, or you get killed, and the person that kills you ends up taking all your winnings. The leads of the movie are Awkwafina, who plays Katie, the lottery winner in the movie, who just moves back to LA. So when everything kind of starts happening, she doesn't know what's going on, and she doesn't know the rules or anything. So it kind of leads to a little funny, kind of interaction. Her first interactions with people trying to steal her jackpot. And the other lead of the movie is John C. And he plays Noel, who tasks himself with protecting her. And the movie's pretty good. And some of that has to do with Awkwafina and Cena being pretty good together. They have pretty decent chemistry together, and it keeps the movie going. The other recognizable name you might see here is Simu Liu, Shang-Chi himself. He's also in the movie. He's a character that probably you kind of know how it's going to go with his character, but it's fine. It's whatever it is. Like most comedies, obviously jokes, when the jokes work, they really work, and here it's the same thing. When the jokes don't work, it does kind of bring the movie a little bit to a stop. It kind of kills the momentum that's kind of going on. But for the most part, I really enjoyed myself. I either found myself laughing a lot or chuckling along. So Jackpot is pretty good. If you want to watch Jackpot, that's on Prime Video. That's a Prime Video exclusive, so you don't have to go out to the theater for that one. Another streaming movie that I watched was The Killer. This one's on Peacock if you have it, or you want to get it for a little bit. John Woo, the director, is back. He was the director of the original, rather. So this is a remake. He remade his own movie with a different and new approach, but keeping essentially the same story. So here, a hit woman, played by Natalie Emmanuel, named Z, she's hired to take out a room full of gangsters and ends up leaving one of them alive. And that has a young woman, Jen, played by Diana Silvers, who ends up going blind due to the attack. Z, feeling bad and feeling like she needs a change, and amongst other things, she doesn't kill Jen, and the people she works for have a problem with that. So they go and send killers to go get Jen, and Z obviously takes it upon herself to end up protecting this girl for various reasons, spoiler reasons that I won't get into here. There is a cop in pursuit of all this that has a bigger connection to everything that is going on as well, and that cop is played by Omar Sky. Most people probably know him from the Lupin series on Netflix. He was in the first Jurassic World movie. He played Chris Pratt's kind of friend. The other raptor trainer, that was him. Yeah, I mean, this is a new version. This is not, the original killer version. Is it better than Woo's original one that he did with Chow Yun-fat, who was playing the hitman in that movie? No, probably not. But it's interesting to see Woo take the story that he created in the movie that he created, and remake it himself and do it this way and tell it in a different lens and a different concept and everything. So I think it's pretty cool. The bare bones of the movie is still there. It is still there. There's there's an assassin. There's a cop after him, and someone and a blind woman in the middle of it all. Shootouts galore as well. So take it for what it is. It's a pretty entertaining movie to watch. Rather, I would still recommend The Killer if you want to go check that out. The next movie I want to talk about, I don't have too much to say about it because this is also one of those movies where I think maybe, I don't know, it's not necessarily the less you know, the better, but it's a movie that definitely is, the whole thing of this movie is the mystery aspect behind it, and that's Blink Twice. Zoe Kravitz steps behind the camera, not only as a director, but also as a co-writer of the movie, which I think briefly talked about this on the summer movie season preview, had an original title that they ended up changing, and the original title was Pussy Island, and I think they probably should have kept that title. I'm just saying. But anyway, the movie follows Naomi Ackie and Ali Shawkat as Frida and Jess, who end up going to a private island that belongs to this big CEO, tech entrepreneur, played by Channing Tatum, named Slater King, and some of his friends. They end up going, and eventually Frida starts figuring out that everything may not be what it seems. So again, there's a kind of a mystery aspect to it, and the final act is where everything kind of gets revealed, and it gets a little messy. It's just it's probably what you would kind of expect, but also I don't know. Like I don't know. Like there was just something, I guess, missing from it. I don't know. I wish it went a little bit more, I guess, into it. But the what we got was just okay. It wasn't. It was. I don't know. Again, this is a very hard movie to explain. This is the reason why I'm talking about it early, because I don't know how I feel about this movie. I think this is one of those movies where I probably have to rewatch it to really kind of maybe understand if I actually like it or not, because I enjoyed it for what it was, but that final act, again, it's a little messy. Just kind of seeing how everything gets revealed, it's like, all right, yeah, I guess. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. But I guess I would still recommend kind of give it a matinee, probably, if you want to go watch it in the middle of the week or the middle of the day. I think this is kind of more where it falls in line for me. The next movie I want to talk about is Strange Darling. Now, this is another movie where the less you know about it, the better, but I'm going to get into it just a little bit. And this is a movie that I only heard, I heard very little about it before it actually came out. When I saw the trailer for the first time, this is kind of like my first real exposure to it. And in the trailer itself, it says, "Going blind." That's one of the quotes, because this was going around the film festivals. But it said it in the trailer, which I found funny, because it's like you're telling me to go in blind to a movie when you're playing the trailer for it. But to the credit, to the trailer's credit, and whoever cut the trailer, they didn't really give anything away. It does make you wonder, though, what is this movie really about? And I will tell you, like I mentioned, this movie, the less you know, the better. But I will tell you, it is a twisted love story. I think I can tell you that much. I can also tell you this movie is told in a non-linear way. And even if you kind of piece together kind of what's going on and where everything's probably leading and how it got up to that point, it's still pretty fun and entertaining to watch it come together and how we got to certain points in the movie. And the two reasons for that are the leads. Kyle Gandler, who has been promoting this movie like crazy on Twitter. I see you, Kyle. He's been promoting it like crazy, like super crazy. So credit to him. He's very proud of this movie, and as he should. And the other lead in the movie is Willa Fitzgerald. Now, most people probably know her from Fall of the House of Usher. She plays the younger version of the sister in there, and she was also in season 1 of Reacher. I'm sure she's been in other stuff, but those are the kind of 2 things that I know her from. At least one of those mainstream things that people will probably know her from as well. But she was very good. They're both very good in this. And those 2 sell the movie. They keep you invested from beginning to end. And most of the time, it's just them, which is really great. So this movie's pretty good. And it's a movie that I definitely think people will have that will be on a lot of people's end of the year list. I definitely think this is one of those movies. If anything, if there's like an indie category for end of the year, this movie will definitely be on there. It's all really about the journey, and I think if you go along with it, even if you kind of figure out what's going on, maybe just seeing how everything kind of plays out is really great, and a lot of that has to do with Gallner and Fitzgerald. Really, there you go, Strange Darling. If you can see it, and if you get a chance to see it, go ahead and watch it. And finally, the last movie that I will say, the less you know about the better, there's a lot of movies like that in August apparently, is Cuckoo. Neon, back in theaters. Obviously, the other movie that came out from Neon this year was Longlegs. But Cuckoo, it's another movie. It takes the action across the pond. And what I can tell you about this movie is it stars Hunter Schafer, who plays Gretchen. She ends up moving with her father and her stepmother, kind of her family, her father, stepmother, and her stepsister, to Germany to live near a resort that the parents are redesigning. That's obviously kind of, a cover story because we never actually see them redesign anything, which I find very funny. We don't even see construction, but there's obviously a very big reason for that, which is why the less you know, the better. But this movie belongs to Schaefer. It belongs to her story, belongs to her character of Gretchen. And there she meets a mysterious doctor in her Conan, played by Dan Stevens, played wonderfully by Dan Stevens. Stevens is having a hell of a year this year. Abigail, Godzilla and Kong, and this. I think it was in something else that came out this year too, and I just can't remember what it was, or he's going to be in something else that comes out this year. But Stevens is having a hell of a year this year, and he's having a hell of a time with this character. All 3 of the movies he's been in so far this year have all been roles that he is clearly having the most fun of his life, and he's the one having the most fun on set. But I love Dan Stevens. I think he's great, and he's great here as well. And Gretchen, after meeting him and kind of meeting someone else, there kind of starts to wonder something is kind of wrong. Something is kind of amiss. And then she comes face to face with what that is. And it's a mysterious creature. That is not a spoiler. That is in the trailer. And that is all I will say about this. This movie gets a little crazy. I probably could have gone a little bit more. I think it does restrain itself to a point. But I was pleasantly surprised by Cuckoo. I'm not going to get into I saw some people on Twitter comparing it just because it came from the same studio. People saying they enjoyed this more than Longlegs. I will say that Cuckoo is probably more accessible to Longlegs. Like if you're not into like the dark, dreary kind of movie, I think Cuckoo would be more. I think Cuckoo is more kind of probably mainstream as opposed to Longlegs. It's more colorful. It's kind of funny. It's kind of very darkly funny. And there's a point in the movie where I think it's Dan Stevens' character says, like, no, you belong here. And Hunter Schafer is like, that's a weird way to put it. It's in the trailer. But in the movie, it plays out, a little bit more. And it's darkly funny. There's a lot of, darkly funny moments in that, in the movie. But I really appreciate it. So if you're going to tell me or ask me, like, hey, the 2 big Neon movies that came out this year in the horror genre, Longlegs, Cuckoo, which do you prefer? I'm probably going to go with Cuckoo just because I think it's more accessible. Both of them are very good. I will say that. Both of them are very good. You wouldn't go wrong either way. But if you don't want to be down and dreary and, have a, be in a, certain dark mood when you watch a horror movie, I think Cuckoo's the way to go. Okay, that is it for the kind of short, and actually, no, I got one more, and I was going to save it because I really wanted to get into it, and I think originally I was going to get really into it, and when I was writing stuff down, I was like, no, I got to stop myself because this podcast is probably going to be long enough as it is. So the other movie is The Crow. I will give the movie credit, and I think a lot of people are giving the movie credit for trying to tell the story in its own way. I think that's probably the thing that everyone I think we can all agree that they were trying to tell their own story of The Crow. It wasn't trying to be the original, which is important. I think everybody can agree with that. I enjoy the action set piece at the end at the Opera House. Bill Skarsgård does okay. He does an okay job playing Eric. I think kind of an excuse to show off that he had really put the work in for his role, because he's shirtless for the second half of the movie. They try to do a little bit more with the Eric Shelley story, and Shelley in this movie, of course, played by FKA Twigs, and she does okay too. I mean, she's not really an actress, but what she did in this movie was okay. But this movie is not good. If you like this movie, great. Hey, I'm happy for you, and I truly mean. I'm not trying to be facetious. I'm not trying to be sarcastic or anything. If you really like this movie, great. And for a lot of people, this will be your Crow, right? This will be the story that and that's fine. And if you like it, great. If you haven't seen the original, I recommend the original. And there'll probably be some people today who are like, oh, I want to go watch the original, and they might find that original, not good. And that's fine. That's their opinion. But this movie, and I say this as someone who went in not ready to compare the two movies. I went into this movie to give it a fair chance. Because that is the fair thing to do. That is the honest thing to do. And this movie was not good. It is, and I hate to say this about movies, it is boring in a lot of places. The villain is overly lackluster, and that is saying something when you have the villain in this movie being played by Danny Huston, who has given us great villains in the past. He is the go-to guy for a villain if you want, that character with a voice and a look. That he is that guy. And what they do with this villain, it's nothing. It amounts to nothing. He is a nothing character in this movie. And that is saying something, because he is supposed to be the villain. And they give him this supernatural kind of ability that also doesn't really go anywhere. You would kind of hope maybe it would go some more places, but it doesn't. And in terms of an adaptation from not even just the original movie, from the graphic novel written by James O'Barr, it kind of misses the point a little bit. Maybe not a little bit, maybe a lot. And it just turns into this, especially at the end, this violent, low-tier, vigilante superhero movie. And that is not what The Crow is. The Crow is a story. If you don't know, the history of why James O'Barr wrote The Crow, I highly recommend you go look. It is a sad story. He lost someone he truly cared about. And in his grief, he wrote The Crow. And there's a lot, obviously a lot more to that. That's kind of just the gist of it. And I don't want to say, the gist, you lost someone that you care about. But this movie misses the point of that by a lot. And if you feel like you really have to watch it, then go ahead and watch it. Obviously, I think it's going to be streaming soon. I don't think it's playing in a lot of theaters. But I would not go watch this in a theater. I would wait. I really would wait to go watch it on a streaming service or on VOD. It is not good. I really wanted to give this movie, I did. I give this movie a fair chance, and I really wanted and hoped that this movie was going to be a little better, because I have been following this movie's production history for a long time. It is a movie history that is a production history that spans, I don't know, 15 years, maybe, if that, with multiple leads coming in, multiple productions starting pre-production and then having to stop, a production that was literally going to start like the week or a couple days before the main actor, before Jason Momoa had left, before its director then followed, because the studio got involved and they changed a lot of what they signed up for from the script. There was another version of the script. I think there was one with when Luke Evans was attached for a while, that they were going to tell kind of another kind of a version of that. And apparently that script was actually pretty decent. And everyone's like, hey, if you're going to do The Crow, this is a pretty decent... Like, they weren't trying to remake the original. Like, they were just trying to do their own thing, kind of similar to the Jason Momoa one. So they were going to do their own thing. And then Luke Evans just left because they kept stalling. So, yeah, I think it's high time that we just leave The Crow alone. Not because... nothing can compare to the original, not because anything of that. I'm sure, at some point someone will remake it, and it will actually be pretty good, and it will be pretty decent. But I just think that, I don't know, maybe we just need to leave it alone. I think we just need to leave it alone for sure. Okay. Those are the quick movies that I just wanted to get to. Didn't have much to say. The next couple movies, the next handful of movies I want to talk about are movies that I'm really going to get into. And that first movie is Borderlands. Based on the popular video game series, Borderlands is finally out. It's not only out in theaters, I think, still. It's also out on VOD now, so if you want to go watch it. And it made an impact on some people. Unfortunately, not in the good way. Now, I don't care about Rotten Tomatoes. I think I've said that on the podcast before. So I don't really pay too much attention to the Rotten Tomatoes rating. But this movie, should be noted, Borderlands debuted with an extremely rare 0%. It is very, very rare that a movie has a 0%, especially when it starts off. Even when there's like just a few certified, reviews, like verified reviews, very rare that it starts off with a 0. Now, is Borderlands really that bad? Personally, I would say no. Is it good? No. It's still a pretty terrible movie. I've seen worse, put it that way. And I've even seen worse this year. And I think this is where I come from. I personally have no connection to Borderlands. I've never played the games. I know what the games are about for the most part. Never played the games. So I'm basing this purely off what I see in the movie. So I wouldn't get any really of the references. I wouldn't get any of the callbacks. Wouldn't get any of the teasers, anything like that. And I think, for the most part, because I saw this movie on Saturday, obviously debuted beforehand, and debuted on Thursday, and I was seeing all of the negative stuff come out for this movie. Like, bar none. There was rarely anybody that was like, hey, this movie's pretty good. No. I saw all negativity. And I think seeing that, I think it prepared myself a little bit. Obviously, I'll say it, and I'll keep saying it every time. I go in with a clean slate. Don't take any expectations with me. I experience the movie and I judge the movie based on what I see right then and there. Even if it's a movie I'm looking, really forward to. But I think having seen all that negativity, it maybe played somewhat of a factor, because I sat down and watched it and I walked out of Borderlands saying, it's fine. I didn't walk out being like, man, this is the biggest pile of crap I've ever seen in my life. No, like I said, I've seen worse this year. Borderlands is not the worst movie this year, but I also didn't come out loving it as well. So I want to give some hindsight into everything Borderlands. Originally, the script was written, a well-liked script, by the way, a script that everyone was like, hey, this is really good adaptation of Borderlands, was written by Craig Mazin. I think that's pronounced his last name. He is the man behind hit shows, Chernobyl, The Last of Us. He wrote the script, and everyone was like, oh, wow, who are they going to get to direct this movie? It's going to be good. And in comes Eli Roth. Not a huge fan of Roth. I think the only real movie of his that I like is A House with a Clock in Its Walls. And that's not even really the movie he's known for. Obviously, he's known for his horror, splat, torture porn, I guess, if you want to call it that as well. I didn't want to use that term, but I had to use the term because I think that's what everyone refers to, the Hostel movies anyway. But Roth wanted to add his own stuff, like any director probably would, especially him who writes and directs a lot of his own stuff. And that's where the problem started, because filming ended in June of 2021. That's when filming ended. This movie didn't come out until this year. And apparently there was a lot of studio interference in the movie. Roth also ended up changing too much of the script. And reshoots had to be done last year. And those reshoots were done by Tim Miller because Roth had gone on to direct Thanksgiving. All of that, the changes, the reshoots, all of that, changed a lot of the script that Mazin originally wrote. And he wanted his name completely taken off of it, to the point that it was a big news item when it came out. I think I even remember talking about it when I was still doing my movie news roundup podcasts, or episodes rather. And seeing the final product, I don't blame him if he wanted his name off of this. Really. So let's get to the movie. Borderlands follows Lilith, played by Cate Blanchett, a bounty hunter hired by Atlas, played by Edgar Ramirez, to find his daughter Tina, played by Ariana Greenblatt, who was kidnapped by one of his own soldiers, Roland, played by Kevin Hart, in a role that's not very Kevin Hardy. Yeah, he has some jokes, but for the most part, he plays it pretty straight. To hunt down a mysterious vault left behind by an ancient alien species that could give the person who finds it its ultimate power. basic sum up, right? The added problem is that Tina, Roland, and Krieg, a psycho, which is kind of a name for the characters who befriended Tina, so they're kind of like their own little mayor group of bandits there, are on Pandora, a planet once thought to be rich in its minerals, and thousands of companies went, and then they ended up abandoning it because they found nothing. They all also went searching for the vault and couldn't find it. And it is now filled with the most deplorable people you can think of. So obviously it becomes a race against time. It becomes a race against who can find the vault first, and this, that, and the other. So I will admit, some of Borderlands is kind of enjoyable. Blanchett is obviously good in pretty much anything that she does. She's good here. There's a chase scene early in the movie, kind of reminiscent, sort of. I don't know. I kept seeing people say Mad Max, and I guess I have to say that as well because it is taking place on a desert. So I think any kind of chase scene in the desert is going to be compared to Mad Max, and I enjoyed it. But that was pretty much it. that was pretty much it. The action does feel tame. This movie is very bloodless, which is obviously, I think, another kind of strike for the video game fans because the games have been known to be very violent and bloody. And it is very noticeable that it is a bloodless movie because when there's a lot of gunshots and a lot of shootouts happening and nowhere is there any blood. And that's even a bigger problem when a lot of them are shirtless. Edgar Ramirez is our supposed villain. And I say supposed because he's barely in the movie. And he doesn't really leave a mark at all. He plays a very generic villain. And nothing against Ramirez. That's just how the character was written, unfortunately, for him. Because he's very good. And he's kind of wasted here. And everything. So, yeah. Jamie Lee Curtis is also in the movie as Tannis. Someone that knew Elizabeth Muller in the past. Who should be a better character. And from what I've read afterwards, she actually is a better character than the character they made her in the movie. But, you know, she comes in a little too late for the movie to really kind of matter and play any kind of sort of factor. Yeah, it's Jamie Lee Curtis. Great. But, you know, she's not all that great. Florian Menatu, I always mispronounce his last name. He was in Creed 2. He plays Ivan Drago's son in Creed 2. He plays Krieg. He's also kind of there, although he doesn't really get to say a lot, and he's pretty much just shirtless, and he has a mask on the entire time. He gets a few little quibs here and there, but he's playing it pretty much, whatever. Like I mentioned, Kevin Hart already, he plays it pretty much straight. Again, a few little jokes here and there, but for the most part, he's playing it pretty straight, which is very interesting, very rare to get a Kevin Hart performance like that, and actually very welcoming. But it just couldn't. It probably could have been in a better movie. And then we have Jack Black, who voices Claptrap, a little robot that is supposed to be the comic relief, but he overplays it. He overplays it a lot. And I think that's the point of his character for the most part, but he overplays it a lot in this movie. And it will range from being okay to being annoying. And I think that's the general consensus of Claptrap in the movie. Overall, the world is kind of plain. Yeah, it's really colorful aspects to it, but you never get the real full vibe of the world. And then the ending falls just really flat. It's very on the nose. I'm not going to spoil it, but if you're paying attention enough, you kind of know where everything's going. And I think once you know that, it just becomes a slog because everyone's like, yeah, we know, the audience knows. And it's like, it's just this thing where it's like, oh, the characters finally find out. It's like, yeah, we found out half hour ago. Why are you guys so behind? And there's no suspense in that anymore. And there's no fun in that kind of thing either. So I think knowing that Borderlands just isn't good, if you haven't seen it, I think will soften the blow if you do end up watching it at some point. But is it a movie you can have to watch in theaters? No, not really. Is it a movie you can watch on VOD or just wait till it hits a streaming service instead of paying or renting for it or whatever? Yeah, probably. And I hate saying that, but yeah, that's kind of what it is. Let's move on. Trap. M. Night Shyamalan back behind the camera and continues the Josh Hartnett renaissance that started with Oppenheimer. Trap, of course. The question is it the good Shyamalan or is it the bad Shyamalan? And for me personally, it's kind of in the middle. But before we get to that point, let's talk a little bit about Shyamalan himself. Shyamalan, obviously, very interesting career, right? To say the least. Started his directorial debut in 1992 with 1992 with Praying with Anger, and then in 98 with Wide Awake, which are probably two movies that no one associates with M. Night Shyamalan because everyone assumes that his first real movie, was The Sixth Sense. And that is, of course, the movie that made him a household name. That is a movie that, once Shyamalan's name appears on the big screen, you're like, oh, I'm going to go watch that. Or, oh, this might not be good anymore. But that is, the name that it was, right? And everyone was like, who's this guy? It's probably just going to be a fluke. Sixth Sense was okay, whatever. Follows it up with Unbreakable, once again, with Bruce Willis, now with Samuel L. Jackson. Okay, fine. 2 in a row, that's okay. Directors can have good streaks. Can't be 3. Nope. Signs. 2002. Mel Gibson, Joaquin Phoenix, hasn't, cast-wise, hasn't aged well in terms of problematic ability. But there you go. Signs, right? 3 for 3. And then here's where everyone kind of starts turning on him a little bit, right? With The Village. Great cast. Obviously, Shyamalan can get a cast together. He knows that. Everybody knows that at this point. But it's where the twists start happening, right? That's where, people were like, this twist isn't really that great. That The Village, I think, is where it kind of started happening. I really want to rewatch The Village. I think The Village is very much due for a rewatch from my end. Because I remember liking The Village when I first saw it. I didn't mind the twist. But the point where people really started turning on him, where it was like, okay, that's enough, was Lady in the Water, which in 2006. Admittedly, a very different movie from his past movies. Also, his only movie without a real twist. Argument's sake, Trap does have a twist that Josh Hartnett is a serial killer. But this movie, Lady in the Water, the only movie really without a twist. It's also his first movie outside of Disney, because the first, all of his movies were Disney productions, and this was the first movie outside of Disney. And then The Happening happened. And that's where everyone was like, okay, we're jumping off ship. Anybody who was even left on the ship, on the wagon, on the hype train, they all got off. It is just a runaway train at this point with, nobody on it. And not the good runaway trains. It wasn't good. And, years later, Shyamalan tried to, kind of save it a little bit and say it was like a homage to B movies. It was always supposed to be a B movie. And no one was buying that. And then, Shyamalan's creator was like, all right, you know what? I'll rebuild. I'll come back. I'll make something that, is probably going to guarantee a lot of money. It's going to guarantee fans to come into theaters. The Last Airbender. Hit TV show at the time, the animated show. People were very much looking forward to this. Started off with some problems casting-wise. But, that's a whole other story. And then we got the movie, and it wasn't good. And then he followed up. He's like, all right, you know what? All right, I'll shake it off. I'll work with Will Smith, right? One of the biggest names in Hollywood. Bring him on. It's a story that he created because he wanted to work with his son Jaden at the time. Jaden was also starting to get into acting a little bit. And they're like, all right, I'll work with the Smith family. What can go wrong? After Earth happened, that's what went wrong. And it just wasn't good. And then he took a little break. Admittedly, he had to take a break. I think he was still doing like TV stuff because I think he had the Wayward Pines TV show on Fox happening, and I think he was more kind of producing stuff at the time. Devil was a movie that he produced. I think there was something else that he produced along the way as well, and I just can't remember it right now. But then he came back with The Visit in 2015, and that was a solid return. It was also a thriller, found footage concept that really worked in that situation. It was really good. Then Split happened. Split, obviously, great performances, gave us Anya Taylor-Joy, continuing the Anya Taylor-Joy train, because she was kind of, I think, The Witch had come out at that point, and people kind of knew sort of who she was, but maybe not really. I think maybe Split kind of, determined that, okay, yeah, she's here to stay. But it was also a great performance by James McAvoy, and McAvoy just killed it in that movie, and everyone was like, oh, James McAvoy. Like, yeah, no, that's James McAvoy right there. And Split was great, right? Gave us that great twist in a post-credit scene that led to Glass and didn't quite stick the landing. I think we can all give Old pass, mainly because it came out during the pandemic, kind of got lost in the shuffle and everything like that. But then Knock at the Cabin came out last year, and I was, one of the people, probably one of the handful of people now that actually enjoyed Knock at the Cabin for what it was. I think it was a solid thriller, great performances. I had my issues with that, but I I still liked it for what it was. And now Trap's here. And Trap fell into the situation with kind of Abigail earlier this year, where did they give too much away in the trailer? Personally, for me, I'm somewhere in the middle of Trap. I know there's a lot of people that really like the movie. There's a lot of people that don't like the movie. There's a lot of people like me that are in the middle. They like a lot of aspects of the movie, and there's some aspects they don't like about it. And I'm in the middle. I've seen people after the movie came out, even still a little bit today, being like, if they're going to do a tier list of Shyamalan's work, Trap would kind of be somewhere near the middle. I would probably agree with that. I think Trap is kind of somewhere near the middle. I think the real reason, the majority of that reason is that Trap works because of Josh Hartnett. He carries this movie on his back from beginning to end, especially the end, because that's where Hartnett really dives into his character. And the rest of the time, he's either playing like the dad who thinks he's cool and wants to be cool in front of his daughter, to this friendly, maybe slightly awkward guy that we've kind of all met. The slightly awkward kind of dad that hangs out with his daughter out in public and takes her to concerts. It's great. He's trying to be a great dad, and from what it looks like, he is a good dad. He just also happens to be a serial killer. And the only person that really comes close to performance-wise for Hartnett in this movie is, I think, Alison Pill, who plays his wife in the movie and was nowhere in the marketing. I think she was more in the marketing after the movie had come out, where you kind of see her character and kind of hear her character. I didn't even know Pill was in this movie until I saw a TV ad. I think it was literally like Friday night, and I saw her character, and I was like, is that Alison Pill? I'm like, oh, it is Alison Pill. So that's kind of interesting. But she's always reliable and that was kind of cool, because Pill is always reliable in anything. She's very, very good. I became a huge fan of hers. First thing I remember her seeing in that stands out, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. She's really great in The Newsroom as well. And that's kind of where I saw more of her, because that's, it was a TV show, not just a movie. So the movie, in case you don't know, the movie follows Cooper, played by Hartnett, who takes his daughter Riley, played by Ariel Donahue, Donahue, to a concert for Lady Raven, played by Salika Shyamalan, the other daughter of M. Night Shyamalan, who is actually a singer and is very much kind of like a Taylor Swift kind of situation singer. However, Cooper finds out that the concert is actually a trap for him, because like the trailers reveal, Cooper is a serial killer known as the Butcher, and the FBI and the cops got a tip that he was going to be at the concert, and the whole concert was a trap for him. And Cooper has to find a way to not only escape the building with the whole police force, it looks like, outside, and the FBI, but also not let his secret come out to his kid, because his kid doesn't know that he's the Butcher. And I mentioned Abigail earlier with the trailers and stuff, and the trailer, because the trailer gives away that he's a serial killer, and was like, why would you give that away? Why would you give that away in the movie? I think if they wanted to hide the fact that he was a serial killer, I think it would be a little hard to edit around that. Because this movie, Josh Hartnett, literally at the first 10 minutes of the movie, he is the Butcher. He's a serial killer. The first 10 minutes of the movie. Something ridiculous like that. So this movie does not try to hide the fact that he's a serial killer. It doesn't do like a red herring kind of thing. He's a serial killer. And the whole point of the movie, especially the first half of the movie, is him trying to find weak points in the police force and moving around the building, trying to make sure that he can find a way out without getting searched. Because he's noticing that the cops are talking to everybody that walks out, especially the men and the dads. So it is very much just him trying to figure everything out and seeing how smart he is, and battling the wits of a profiler who's not really a character in the movie. She's kind of just like this like looming kind of, I don't want to say threat, because obviously the threat is Josh Hartnett, but she's kind of just like this looming presence. But they never, it's just one of those things where they never really like, it's not like a scene where they like go head to head. Like battle of wits or anything like that. So we don't see that. If you're expecting that doesn't happen. I think I'm okay with giving that away. So this very much is kind of just like, I don't know if this is a movie where the less you know, the better. I think if you just know that the first half of the movie is him trying to get out of the concert, and then the second half of the movie is him trying to get away in another sense, I think it is enough for you. Because it does take place, the whole movie does not take place inside the concert, because eventually the concert has to end. But yeah, and then the concert part, Salika Shyamalan, she does have a role in the movie besides playing the singer, and she does okay. She's not an actress. Shyamalan gave her the role. A lot of people are saying that, like, oh, this is just a concert movie for his daughter, so she can get more publicity and stuff. And hey, he loves his kids. And this movie is very much also a movie about fathers and daughters, and I won't give that away. And I think it's very obvious. There's a point in this movie where it almost comes to a stop, where Shyamalan is like talking about him, almost like himself, not Cooper. And I think that was just very interesting that they put that in the movie. Like, if you pay attention enough, if you know kind of the whole deal, it's like, oh, you talking about yourself? Well, what's going on? This is a movie. It's not therapy. Come on now. But yeah, there's that. So I don't know. I think the script feels a little off, a little odd. I think it's becoming an issue with Shyamalan where it's like, does he know how people actually talk? Because this movie is very much that people don't talk like that. Why are people talking like that? So I don't know. It's kind of weird. That, like, did you just shoot this like off the first draft? Like, did you not like redo this more and more? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't dislike Trap. There's a lot of things to dislike about Trap rather, but I enjoyed it for what it was. It wasn't a bad movie. If you're hearing things like, oh, Trap is a bad movie, it's not. I think there's a lot of things to like about Trap. So if you get a chance to see it in theaters, great. I don't know if it's still playing in theaters or some theaters, but if you see it on VOD, I think it is worth the rental. It is worth seeing it. I wouldn't say it's the worst movie of the year like some people are. I think there's far more worse movies than Trap, but Trap is kind of like that middle of the road kind of movie. I do think so. That's my end. Final movie for the August rundown. It's the big one. It's Alien Romulus. The newest addition to the Alien franchise finally came out, and like every other Alien movie that has come out, it is met with a very divided fan base. Although the consensus kind of seems like it falls more into the positive side, with many praising the fact that the movie dived back into the horror genre, I being one of those people, and used practical effects, I being one of those people, and great looking production design, I being one of those people, and the cast being pretty good. Again, I am one of those people as well, I should say. The amazing and beautiful cinematography by Galo Olivares, who did the cinematography for Gretel and Hansel and was a camera operator in Roma. So he knows how to shoot a movie. Good looking movie. Style points, all there. The acting, yeah, the great lead in Kaylee Spaney, who we saw earlier this year in Civil War. Personally, I really enjoyed Alien Romulus for what it was. The third act, which is where a lot of people have problems with the movie, is a little messy. And in my personal opinion, it's a little mixed. I got mixed feelings about it. I can see why people have problems with it. Myself, again, included. But the movie as a whole, I think was really enjoyable. I think it was. I don't know if I'm ready to say Alien Romulus is my favorite horror movie of the year, but it's probably definitely in the top 5 so far. The movie follows a group of kids, children, of miners that worked for the Weyland Utility Corporation, who hatch a plan to escape from the miner planet they are on to find a joint ship floating in orbit, of course, called Romulus and Remus. The plan is to take the cryopods on the ship to go to the home planet of Rain. That's Kaylee Spaney's character. But of course, everything goes awry, and the group is met with a multitude of facehuggers and everyone's favorite, xenomorphs. This is directed by Fede Alvarez, the man behind Don't Breathe, the Evil Dead remake, and surprisingly, and something I forgot that he directed, The Girl with the Spider's Web, or The Girl in the Spider's Web, which is the continuation / remake of the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series. Yeah, I forgot he did that. Like, I was looking through his IMDb because I was, that's just something that I do, generally. And I was like, oh, I forgot he directed that. Like, I honestly forgot he directed that. But Alvarez also got some big help with Ridley Scott, who gave Alvarez his blessing and helped him out as producer on the movie. Not only that, Alvarez also got the practical effects team from Aliens to help with the practical effects on this movie. Because yes, the movie has a ton of practical effects, especially when it comes to the facehuggers and the xenomorphs. There's a bunch of videos online, behind the scenes footage of Alvarez. Alvarez self-proclaimed big fan of the Alien series. He wanted to treat this movie with the utmost respect, and I think he does. You can tell that he is a fan of the Alien movies. He said he got inspiration for this movie playing Alien Isolation, which is one of the video games. And obviously, watching just the Alien series as a whole, you can see, bits and pieces of every Alien movie in here. And because of all that, this movie, with the practical effects and everything, is a little disgusting at times. Surprisingly, not totally out there, the disgusting factor like Evil Dead. But when it kicks in, it's there with the xenomorphs and the facehuggers and everything. And I think there was also video of like screenings with like the facehuggers on the floor that crawl around. I thought that was pretty cool. That was pretty interesting. I think someone at one screening also had like someone had like a chest burster person coming out. Obviously not. I didn't see the full effect, but someone was saying they had like a chest burster inside them. So I think it was very cool. But I want to talk a little bit about that because of the disgusting factor, like I mentioned. There's a lot of people saying there wasn't, why this wasn't as gross, disgusting, bloody, gory as Evil Dead, which Alvarez is, he played up the factor on that to 100. Probably not realizing or forgetting that these are very two different franchises, Evil Dead and Aliens. And the Alien franchise didn't really become the gross out, gory franchise until recently with Prometheus and Alien Covenant. Because the goriness, the gory factor for the Alien franchise is the chest bursters. That's as far as it ever went. It was really just the chest bursters, especially in the first Alien. Because obviously Romulus takes place, or not obvious, I shouldn't say obvious. In case you didn't know, Romulus takes place between the events of Alien and Aliens. So it's Alien Romulus, Aliens. And the grossest this movie got, again, was that chest burster scene. There are some stuff here and there later on, but I think for the most part, this movie, it didn't need the gross out factor because it's not what the franchise was, especially early on. And I think Alvarez knew that, and he was trying to be a little bit controlled. And I think he controlled himself enough where, that didn't need to play a factor. But because of that, he was allowed to really amp up the horror. Alvarez knows the genre very well. Like I mentioned already, he knows the franchise very well. And he combined those two things and gave us a worthwhile ride. At least in terms of scope and aesthetic, for me personally. So I'm going to get a little bit into spoiler territory now for Alien Romulus. But I will say it's very good. You should go watch it, especially if you're a fan of Aliens. Judge it yourself. Hopefully nothing's been, too spoiled for you. And if it has, just watch the movie as a whole. Read up on some interviews on what Alvarez said, or if you already watched it, you can, I'm going to get into a little bit of that right now. So here's a spoiler warning for Alien Romulus. Okay, story-wise, if you want to fault the movie, especially in the third act, when it becomes callback-o-mania, you have every right to. Because that final act, despite some cool stuff, like the zero-gravity acid scene, it is also filled with things from the first two Alien movies that we love. One of which gave me, in the theater, a nice little chuckle, but in hindsight, not a fan. The line, get away from her, you bitch. Of course, he's said with a stutter. But the blaring one that I think we all have to talk about, and I think if you're a fan of Alien, you have to talk about this. Or if you're a fan of Alien and you're talking about this movie, I think we're all talking about the same thing. It's the CGI return of Ian Holm. Holm, of course, played Ash in the first Alien movie, and he's playing a new character here in Rook. It's a new character, same plan, same design. He's even wearing the same clothes as Ash, which, and I remember watching the movie. I was like seeing like everything, and it's like, oh, it's just an android. It's like, whatever. And I saw the clothes immediately. I spotted it immediately. I was like, is that supposed to be Ash? Like, is that just, a model of Ash? And then, they were doing their very best to hide his face. And then they finally showed his face. And it was Ian Holm. And yes, it was very uncanny. That uncanny, valley feeling of seeing Ian Holm, he's not, he's no longer with us. And to have him return in that way, considering that, timeline wise in the movies, this would probably still be the face model for the androids that they have. It's also the most blaring use of CG. The rest of the movie CG is pretty good. You barely notice it. But here you notice it. And it should be noted that the reason why Holm is in the movie isn't just because it's like, oh, we're just going to put him in the movie because, Ash is the only character, Holm is the only character that didn't get to portray, an android more than once, besides, Winona Ryder. Alvarez did get permission from Holmes's surviving family to use his likeness. And it was kind of important to Alvarez because I think at the time it played like an even bigger factor. I think someone important to him passed away around the same time that Holm passed away as well. And I think the families kind of came together and they kind of, knew this was, it wasn't just, something for cheap effect in a movie. It was something more important for them for the legacy of Holm to live on. There's a whole article about, Alvarez, and he's done interviews talking about it because, he knew that people were going to have, an issue with it. And he has openly talked about it. But the fact that they actually got permission from, Holmes's surviving family is very important. And they gave him permission. And they were like, yeah, go ahead and do it. I think if they just did it just to do it, that obviously is, pushing it. And that obviously is not okay. But they got permission to do it, which I think is very, very cool. And again, I think it would make sense that the Ash face model would still be used by the androids or by Weyland-Yutani instead of, it immediately going to who would be Bishop, played by Lance Hendrickson in Aliens. I think I think that made sense. I mean, it is a new character because his name is Rook. It's not Ash anymore. It's Rook. So it is a new character, but I think the fact that it was Holm, I think Alvarez was trying to, really push the idea of like, hey, this is a connected world. This is something that has always been in the works and has always been planned by the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. This is, they were always evil. They weren't, like, oh, we'll wake up one day and be evil. No, they were always evil. They knew what they wanted to do, and they knew that the androids were going to help them do it. With the exception of Bishop. Bishop was okay, for the most part. And Winona Ryder's character, which I forgot her name. I think it's something with a C, because they kind of go alphabetically, and I forgot her name. Anyway, move on. Speaking from one android to another, let's talk about the other android. David Johnson, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, plays Andy. And he's getting a lot of love online. He's still getting a lot of love. Got a lot of love, as he should. His Andy is a decommissioned android that Rain's father found and reprogrammed to help Rain with whatever she needed. And to tell bad dad jokes. He's very timid at the beginning until they changed the circuit drive in him with Rook's programming. And he suddenly turns into this very stoic, serious, mission-driven android that is a completely different person. And that change up that Johnson does from Andy to new Andy / Rook is so damn good. And it is so convincing. And he's really good. And he deserves all the flowers that he gets. Because he's basically playing two different characters. And it is so wonderful to see on screen. Kaylee Spaney, like I mentioned, superstar in the making. Very good here. Another strong female lead for the series. Obviously, Alien is known for their female-led heroes. Obviously, Ripley, played by Sigourney Weaver. And she's very much her own character. She has very Ripley-esque moments and even like shots, but she's very much her own character. And Spaney is very, very good here. The other person, though, I want to shout out the most of the cast is Isabella Marced. She plays Kay. She's the sister of Tyler, one of the other characters played by Archie Renault. I think that's pronounced. I don't know how to pronounce the last name. But Tyler, by the way, he's the character that obviously sets this whole thing up. He was like, hey, there's a ship up there. We can get out of here. We're good. But Kay plays his sister. And Marced is very good here. And she never catches a break. Credit to Marced, because she went through the ringer of this movie. Not only is she already pregnant at the start of the movie, normally plot armor, right? Nope, not here. She's pregnant. She's there when another character, Navarro, played by Aileen Wu, gets the chest burster out of her. She gets the chest burster scene. And when that happens, they're on their ship and it gets spun around the Romulus and Remus and it crashes in to one of the ships. So she gets thrown around a lot. She gets out of the ship after it crash lands. Xenomorph stabs her and you think she's dead. Like, no, she's still alive, very much alive, saves herself, bleeding out, admittedly, but she injects herself unknowingly with the black goo from Prometheus, which I'll get to. Gives birth to the weird creature-human hybrid, who was a real person. I think everyone saw the behind-the-scenes picture by now of the guy. He was a basketball player. I forgot to put his name in here. Real guy, in a suit, not CG. Creature kills her, and just like that, she's done for. She's dead. Also, Merced, great horror scream. Very great. More than once. Good for her. She's awesome. But yeah, she never caught a break in this movie. So credit to Merced out there. She's awesome. She's great. She's great in this movie. Let's talk about I mentioned Prometheus, the Prometheus goo. It makes a comeback, which I guess makes sense. Again, Prometheus, Alien Covenant takes place before these movies too. Again, I guess it kind of makes sense that the goo is back, creates the creature, which also, by the way, has a very good last-minute jump scare, which I briefly read about before I watched the movie. And I was like, what? And I thought I had seen it. I was like, okay. It's like, there was a moment that happens. I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's the moment. No. That jump scare, it scared the shit out of me. I will wholly admit to that jump scare getting me. And I think it got a few other people in my theater too, because some of them were chuckling. So, very good scene. Very good jump scare, rather, I should say. But it makes the connection. It's like, why did they want the goo still? Like what? Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, you didn't need that. Like, I felt like they didn't need that part. I think they have to have it because they needed the hybrid in there. But it could have just been a xenomorph, right? It could have just been that, but whatever. All in all, I enjoyed Alien Romulus, like I mentioned, for what it was. The final act is a little bit messy. It gets a little bit too callbacky. But I think if you're a fan of the Alien franchise, I think you will enjoy this movie, even if it's just the first 2/3 of the movie. Because I think that those first 2/3 of the movie, before the final act, gets a little messy, before it becomes a combination of aliens, and even a little bit of Alien Covenant. It's still a relatively good movie. It is still a great horror movie. It is a great suspense thriller, a great atmospheric movie with a great young cast. And I very, very much enjoyed Alien Romulus for what it was. I'd highly recommend it. I know I do my rating system. I haven't really done it here. I usually don't do it for the roundups, but I would recommend Alien Romulus for you guys. So, all right. That is the August movie roundup. I apologize for being a little late. I once again apologize for not doing my job, podcast-wise anyway. I will try to do better. I got, again, things lined up that I'm ready to do. That some stuff's already ready to go. I just need to put some final touches on it, and you'll have that ready to go, guys. I promise. Thank you guys so much for listening. Let me know what your favorite movie in August was. August is very packed. I didn't get to watch everything. I didn't get to talk about everything that I watched in August, but got what I wanted to talk about. So let me know what you guys thought. Let me know what your favorite movie in August was. Hopefully September is a little better in terms of uploading and stuff like that. So yeah. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. Appreciate you guys, and I will see you guys on the next one. As always, go watch some movies.
Whoop whoop! Yeah! Give it up! Movies!